public policy for a more digital, inclusive Europe. And before we start, just a few reminders. We would like to remind that everyone that this session is being recorded and that it will be also be broadcast in the Medici social media, as well as probably uploaded in the platform. And also in the end, we will be opening the discussion to our audience. So please, if you want to pose any questions to our speakers, use the chat box, and we'll be asking those questions in the end of the discussion. I will also start now by presenting our speakers. And so today we have with us Sandra Spjuth, who is the Regional Digitalization Coordinator for the region of Örebro County in Sweden. Sandra has been working in different projects and assignments in the field of digitalization, and more recently she's coordinating the implementation of the recently adopted strategy of digitalization for the Örebro County for the period of 2021 and 2026. Thank you very much, Sandra, for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's a pleasure. And then we also have Tanya Marmari, who is the Digital Inclusion Coordinator for the Brussels Capital Region under the Brussels Regional Informatics Center, which is the public interest agency that aims to assist the local, regional, and community institutions with their digital transformation. Thank you very much, Tanya, for being here, and especially your extra effort of being here today, despite of being and feeling a little bit ill. Thank you very much, Tanya.
Thank you, my pleasure.
And also we have with us Luisa Ribeiro Lopes, who is the coordinator of the Access for the Inclusion of the National Digital Skills Initiative INCO 2030 of Portugal. Luisa is also president of the .pt, which is the entity responsible for the management of the national top-level domain in Portugal, .pt. And thank you very much, Luisa, for being here with us today as well. And finally, we have also the pleasure of having Adam Micklethwaite, who is the director of digital social inclusion at Good Things Foundation in UK, which is possibly one of the biggest digital inclusion charities in UK, and has extensive work on establishing bridges both with government and public policy and philanthropy as well, and with the private sector. So thank you so much, Adam, for joining us as well today. So I would like to start today our discussion and to listen to your perspectives on the different specificities of the strategies, because we are privileged of today having here for a very different context, right? So maybe starting with Luisa, as the coordinator of the inclusion axis of the Portuguese strategy for digital inclusion, can you let us know a little bit what are the most relevant aspects of the strategy towards digital inclusion, and also what has been the progress up until now? Luisa, your mic is off. You're muted. You need to unmute your microphone, please.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mariana from Medici Portuguese Project, for the invite to be here and be able to share with you and all of the audience the Portuguese policy and some of the Portuguese projects for digital inclusion. Also salute my colleagues in this panel, Sandra, Tanya, and Adam. Hi. Thanks for this topic. I've been working for digital inclusion, in particular women digital inclusion, for the last years, and I really believe that in our decade, digital inclusion is the better way for social and economic inclusion. Portugal has a long way still to go. According to DESI, the Digital Economy and Society Index, as you know, in Portugal, we have 20% of individuals who have never used internet. 20% of our population means 2 million people have never used internet. This is our huge problem. and our youth challenge is qualifying Portuguese population in digital skills. And as I said before, I sincerely believe that this challenge has several social and economic dimensions. As Medici Digital Inclusion Community knows, these 2 million of digital excluded are mostly vulnerable and disadvantaged people, citizens with less education and training, less financial resources, residents outside of the big cities, and of course, women. That is why empowering citizens with digital skills promotes also social and economic inclusion and gender equality. Gender equality is one of our transversal goals in all digital plan. In 2017, the Portuguese government established the National Digital Competencies Initiative Portugal in Code 2030. Is an integrated public policy to develop and decrease digital skills. However, considering the fourth industrial revolution and all the positive impact that digitalization and technology have in improving and promoting progress, social and economic, since 2020, the Portuguese government has an ambitious plan for the digital transformation, namely Portugal Digital, with an important signature, moving forward, moving with a purpose. The purpose is to accelerate Portugal without leaving anyone behind and to highlight this mission in the world. And how? Through the digital empowerment of people, the digital transformation of the business, and the digitalization of the public administration. I like to show you a small video that was presented at the Web Summit last December in Lisbon, a virtual edition, as you know, that shows Portugal as a country committed to the digital transition with a purpose, and that purpose must be humanist. I don't know if the video works, but I will try, okay?
Okay.
Can you see?
We can see, but the video is not working, Luisa.
And now? No?
No, it's not working.
If you want, I can send you our link and you can see it after.
Okay,
It's a
that
nice
sounds like a good
video.
plan. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
That's a good idea, Luisa.
Okay.
So on that note, maybe move on to Sandra and just taking the words of Luisa about finding a purpose and for these strategies, which is something which is very, very important.
Yeah.
Sandra, for your regional strategy, which has been just recently designed for the next period of 2021 and 2026, right? So this is fresh for you.
Yeah.
I'm curious, what were the most important steps you took that helped you reflect and decide the elements and the purpose for your strategy? For instance, did you had to look at what existed already? Also in terms of municipalities, do you have general strategic aspects and then a few more specific aspects to each municipality needs? Overall, what was the process of designing your strategy?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you others, but I have this echo in my ears. So maybe if the one's not talking, if you mute, because that's probably Thank you.
Thank you.
I think when it comes to us on the regional level, we've always been, of course, looking at all the European initiatives and of course the national ones. But for us here in Sweden, historically, when we were talking about the public policies about digital inclusion and digitalization as a whole, the main focus has almost always been on the digital infrastructure and not so much on the digital inclusion. So that's what we were trying to change focus from when we were starting to look at our regional plans and how we were going to try to, well, decrease the digital gaps. So that's what we were trying to focus on, because I think it's been mainly the objectives when it comes to public sector and the public policies that you of course want to enhance the digital infrastructures. And the risk with that is that you forget the digital inclusion and that you also have to include the people living in our county. So that's what we are trying to do now, trying to change focus and going into the digital inclusion, because that's what the pandemic has shown us, that people are getting even more excluded. Even though more people use internet in Sweden, you also see the people already excluded, they are getting even more excluded. So that's what we were trying to focus on. And as you said, Miana, we're in the beginning. So this is a really important time for us now, trying to set a good public policy when it comes to digital inclusion in our county, of course. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandra. And for you, Tanya, you have been coordinating the digital inclusion strategy in Brussels region since 2019, correct? So far, what have been the main aspects for you as well and the focus of your strategy?
Actually, there is sorry for my voice. There is a specific action plan dedicated to digital inclusion in the Brussels capital region since 2018. And there is indeed a new action plan that will be submitted to the government's region next week. This new plan was added with some actions linked to the COVID-19 pandemic, because we have seen that more and more people are excluded, digitally excluded. And so it was really important for us to do some actions towards those people also. But it's true that even though the digital inclusion plan exists only since 2018, there have been some digital inclusion action that had started long ago. We have, for example, in the Brussels capital region, the project called Wi-Fi.Brussels, which is a free Wi-Fi network covering certain zone of the territory of the Brussels capital region. We have for the moment 221 hotspots located in some indoor places like town halls or public spaces, but also on outdoor hotspots and in the subway, so in the metro stations. Also, we have having other action like fiber to the school. So we connected all the secondary schools of the Brussels capital region with a broadband internet connection. Also, we are working a lot with all the digital public spaces. So those are spaces offering the public a program providing access, initiation, and assistance with regard to information and communication technology. So we are doing a lot, but it's true that in the new plan, we focused on some specific target groups that are more and more digitally excluded, and that we know about thanks to the studies and so on. But it's true that the COVID-19 pandemic has really shown up that some people were not especially digitally excluded before are now in this case. I take, for example, the the families who have a computer and an internet connection at home. It was okay before the COVID-19 pandemic, but now that all the family must do homeworking, and for the children distance learning and so on, only one computer per family, it's not okay anymore. So we need to do more and more to be sure that all the people living in Brussels, they can have access and be included in this digital transformation program.
Thank you, Sandra. We've been hearing a lot about the importance of establishing this kind of networks and links between public sector and private sector with not-for-profit organizations and foundations who are working in the field as well. Adam, the Good Things Foundation has played such an important role in the field of digital inclusion in UK. Could you also give us a broad idea about your strategy on how to tackle the problem of digital exclusion? And also, I read your manifesto for digital inclusion from last April, and I would like also to ask if you could elaborate a little bit on what you wrote there around the idea, because as Tanya was mentioning, I think it's very important that we provide the right connectivity and access, as well as digital skills and tools to people. But you also mentioned something very important, which is we need to give motivation to people and help them find the right meaning for them to want to feel digital included. And could you also elaborate a little bit on that, please?
Of course. Thanks, Miana, and really pleased to be here today. So the numbers in the UK of digitally excluded people are similar to the levels that Louisa was talking about to start off with. So still very high. 9 million people in the UK can't use the internet independently. And to your point, Miana, about access, 7 million households in the UK don't have home internet access. So I'm sure we'll talk about COVID later on and the impact that has had in exacerbating digital exclusion. But the core point in the UK, and I think this will be common everywhere, is that there is a very strong correlation between the likelihood of digital exclusion and the likelihood of social exclusion or economic exclusion. You're in the UK, if you're 40% more likely to lack basic digital skills if you're on a low income. And more than half of people with who are offline, do not use the internet at all, are in the lowest socioeconomic groups. So COVID has exacerbated this, but it was already an issue in the UK. And I think somebody in the chat panel was asking about how we reach socially excluded groups and our strategy. Our strategy is and has been for many years to work with community organisations, so very, very small community groups, social enterprises, community interest companies, housing associations, and quite a lot of public libraries as well, but organisations that are very much embedded in their communities and are able to build relationships based on trust with people who are digitally excluded and also face lots of other barriers. You mentioned motivation. 77% of the people, so over 3/4 of the people in the UK who are currently offline, said in a survey by Ofcom, who is the UK's internet regulator, last year, that nothing would persuade them to go online in the next 12 months. So that's the motivational point we're talking about. But despite that, and this is again the reason why we work with small, hyper-local organisations and communities, they have been able to engage with people who face that motivational barrier and have, through patience and commitment and energy and enthusiasm, been able to change their minds. And I think it is about seeing the wider benefits of digital. So it's not about saying to people, we are going to teach you digital skills because you need to have digital skills. It's about saying the internet and digital technology can help you to be happier, healthier, better off. And it can help you in all of these different ways. And let's find a way which is most appropriate, most relevant for you. And let's start there. So it could be I need to get into work because the pandemic has taken my job away. It could be that I need to improve my health and well-being, maybe my mental health. It could be that I need to stay connected with my friends and relatives to a greater degree than I am right now. You find that hook, or that's what we've been doing, and then you work from there to help people to cross that digital divide. Then just a bit about the blueprint you were talking about. So last year we started a campaign in the UK called hashtag Fix the Digital Divide. And our mission is to help everybody to cross that digital divide. And we published a blueprint which set out the actions we thought should be taken to help this to happen. And at the heart of that blueprint is the idea of what we're calling a great digital catch-up, which effectively says government and the private sector and civil society, everybody needs to come together and work together on a big plan that can help everybody to move across that digital divide, focusing on the people who are most vulnerable and facing social exclusion. So we've we've influenced the government in the UK for investment, and I can talk more later in the session about what the UK government is doing. We haven't seen investment yet in that idea, but there is a lot of interest and a lot of support, particularly from large private sector organisations. So in the UK, we have BT, British Telecom, BT, who's the largest telco. We have organisations like Accenture and Lloyds Banking Group, all of whom are leaning in and supporting digital inclusion through partnerships with themselves and also with government and the civil society. And then we also see some bigger names in global philanthropy interested in supporting too. So we have a partnership with Google.org and another with the JP Morgan Chase Foundation. So it's really important that everybody works together and finds the ways in which you can embed digital inclusion into those activities that support people to improve their financial health, their employment and skill support, their mental health and well-being, and so on. Because if we can put this everywhere, if we can mainstream digital inclusion and make it at the heart of everything, it's an automatic thing that will always happen in social and economic programs, then we'll be going a long way to trying to close that digital divide. So I'm very happy to say more about that as we go on.
Thank you, Adam. And something, as you said, we need to go a little bit deeper is the impact, of course, of COVID-19 and how this has played a role in how we rethink and replan the strategies that were actually already in place, right? We were already working towards digital inclusion, and it became even more urgent, that work. So Luisa, last week, Portugal entered into a full lockdown again. And could you please talk about a little bit about maybe previous initiatives that were taken by InCode 2030 on the first maybe period of the pandemic? And also if you can disclose a little bit of the few perspectives on the current and near future actions. For instance, schools were closed last Friday, and school vacations were anticipated instead of having children to go into distance learning classes. Why? Because this option was taken to protect the children who are more digital excluded, allegedly to distribute more computers to those who don't have computers or Wi-Fi access. We also know that they also need, despite of having the tools, they need the skills, the follow-up, and they need the skills to use these tools. Can you also let us know a little bit what are some of the plans for InCode for this upcoming period as well?
Yeah, as Miana said, the world and Portugal is going through the biggest public health crisis in internet and digital times. Portugal is now going through a huge crisis. March, this second phase after Christmas is worst, and people are very tired. The COVID-19 pandemic showed how all citizens, companies, public administration depends on the digital. Work, study, and keep the economy and social life running depends on the digital. The Portuguese government concerning to the mostly vulnerable and disadvantaged groups start some digital inclusion projects now. The Digital School is a program focusing the digitalization of teaching in schools, including distribution of computers. 400,000 computers will be distributed to the most vulnerable students. But also we need to training the teachers. We need to have digital skills in students. This program is vital for the new lockdown. And all the students are at home now again. and in some cases, the students have no computer, no access to the internet, and this is a huge problem now in Portugal. Other example in this lockdown is the support to victims to the domestic violence. For instance, we have now a platform for the victims of domestic violence, and they can use this platform to claim to the authorities about this kind of violence. And all the new legislation encouraging the telework is being made, and it's very, very important. But we have other projects facing to the pandemic. Upskills project, which intend to re-qualify professionals so that after the appropriate training period, online training, they can be integrated in companies, Portuguese and multinational companies operating in Portugal, like Google, Deloitte, Cisco, or Vodafone, collaborate with the Portuguese government, and they have needs of staff in these kind of areas, programming and digital areas, and they need to have more professionals and requalifying professionals. And we have other program, huge program. Eu sou digital.pt, in English is I am digital.pt, to the digital excluded people. This ambitious project aims to bring for the next 3 years to the digital 1 million citizens who have never used the internet, giving them basic digital skills. This program had a pilot project in 2019 in 7 regions outside the big cities, with community proximity community, and after the experience, the main project will start this year. This is a kind of projects, it's very, very important. And we have another project that probably Adam knows. It calls Apps for Good. In UK, you have Apps for Good too. It's an educational technology movement where teachers and students would work together to respond to the relevant day-to-day issues through the creations of apps. Apps for Good was one of the 100 most promising technology initiatives in Europe in 2018, released by the Financial Times and Google, and won the UNESCO Haddam Prize in 2020. It's a huge project with students and professors. It's very, very interesting, and I can send you more details about these kind of initiatives. I think it's
and by the way, Luís, by the way, just to add to what you were saying, João Baracho from Apps for Goods will be participating in a session tomorrow of our conference at 2 p.m. So hopefully everyone will be able to join us as well there.
Okay.
So I would like also to give the word now to Sandra, and reflecting a little bit about some of the things that Adam and Luisa have been mentioning as well. And also, again, like you said, this is a very recently designed strategy for you for starting now 2021. And I'm curious, did you consider the pandemic reality while you were designing the strategy, as well as the post-pandemic? Because we are all hoping that in 2026 we will be in a much better situation than the one we are living right now. But for sure, dealing with the effects of the pandemic, the current pandemic, right? So I'm curious to know if this kind of specificities were reflected into your strategy, and also maybe a few of the things that were also mentioned, the links and the important links to the private sector and the third sector as well, and also thinking about in digital skills, not only the digital skills for the vulnerable groups, but also for the people, for the professionals who are working directly with them and who probably will be important mediators towards their digital inclusion as well.
Yeah. Well, actually, our work started before the pandemic started, so we had to switch focus a bit in the middle of our work. So, of course, it's played a huge part in the strategy and, of course, the results and the outcome of the strategy. And the thing is that I think with the strategy is, I hope, and I think it's wider now than I think it would have been if there hasn't been a pandemic. So in a way, that's a positive thing, if we can talk about positive things when it comes to pandemics. But I think we've had included more things in the strategy than we would otherwise have done if it hasn't been a strategy. So one of the things that we've actually started looking at now is an action plan when it comes to digital inclusion, which we will include yearly in our strategy, because I think that's a very important thing to be flexible and try to adapt to various things that kind of happen all the time in society. Because one of the challenges in Sweden is that we don't have this national coordination when it comes to these questions about digital inclusions. You have so many, well, you have public sectors, you have organizations, you have other, well, important organizations that work with these questions, but there's no really coordination. And all the regions and municipalities in Sweden, they are self-governed. So when you have these national initiatives or even on regional level, there's always problem because you can't tell anyone what to do because everyone is self-governed. So there's always this problem with getting everyone working in the same direction because everyone is their own master, if you know, understand what I mean. So that's a huge problem for us in Sweden. So what we're going to try to do is try to find this more long-term infrastructure around digital inclusion in our county and try to include the civic society, all the public libraries, all the organizations working with these questions and try to focus together and work more at one goal instead of everybody running around doing different things. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandra. And and Tanya, for you, for the Brussels region, how has been this reshaping of your strategy towards the pandemic needs? You were mentioning before the last time we were talking that more recently you defined specific actions for the specific vulnerable groups. Can you also mention a little bit about that, because probably it's within this pandemic context as well, and also the importance of these establishing links and coordination, not only with the higher structures of your national government, and paying attention as well to the European indications and pointers and messages, as well as paying attention to the local needs, as well as their own autonomy and respecting that as well. Can you give us a word on that, please?
Yes, it's true that for the Brussels Capital Region, it's really important to, as we are the Europe's capital, it's really important for us to see what's happening in other countries and to take the good practices and try to implement it in the Brussels Capital Region also. It's true also that the Belgium is a bit complicated to understand politically. I would say we have 3 regions, we have 3 community. The community are based on the language and so are in charge of everything related to the language, so culture, education and so on. The regions are more based on territory and so are in charge of employment, economic. And for digital inclusion, you can see the link between people who are unemployed, who must be must have the digital skills to find the job and so on, but also you can see the link with education, with the digital culture. So it's really important to make the link between the different community in Belgium, the different regions, see what's happening in the north of the country, in the south of the country, to implement it in the Brussels capital region. And also on the federal level, national level, there are lots of politics going on, especially right now, because we have a new minister in charge of digital transformation. So it's really important to make the link between all the policies. So it's true that the action plan we had presented to the minister in charge in the Brussels capital region, we had written it in 2019. And at the time, they must present it to the government. The pandemic arrived, and so we reshaped everything to put some extra actions in it, to be able to respond to the new gap that the pandemic had created. So it was really interesting to see how we could put more action in it and to be more efficient to the people who were really in need due to the COVID-19 crisis we are living right now. Sorry. So besides, we did some specific actions also during the COVID-19 pandemic, to, for example, we provided tablets into retirement homes to connect the elderly to the family. During the first lockdown, we knew in March, April, May, so on. And lots of people in the retirement homes still now cannot see the family on a regular basis and so on. We made also an action with refurbished IT tools. So, for example, all the laptops for of the people working in regional agencies, government agencies, and so on. After 5 years, we consider that the material is good for refurbished, and so we give all the laptops to organization within the territory and to association aiming to redistribute to the marginalized people. So that's things we have done during the pandemic, but it's true that in the plan we put also some actions taken from an emergency plan. Like, for example, we said one of the action that we will take is to provide all the schools with laptops. So we have planned 9,000 laptops for a bit less than 200 schools. So the schools directly can give the laptops to the students who are in need and who cannot buy a laptop. So we are sure that they can follow the lessons online and so on. So yeah, those are actions we are trying to take to help the people. Yeah, maybe just a little word about the plan. It's true that we have 4 axes in this plan. One of the axes is the awareness, to be sure to, like Adam said, it's to be sure that the people know what's in it for me, what can IT provide me, how can IT help me in my personal life or in the professional life. It's true that most of the people, they just say, yeah, IT, it's not for me, I cannot understand that, it's too complicated. But it might be easy if just got the switch to say, okay, I will try to do it. The second act is more about federation, coordination, make recommendation, evaluations of the actions we are taking and so on, and also recommendation about the digitalization of the public services. So to be sure that as we digitalize, it's also accessible to everybody in the way we are developing it, for example. The third axe is really to equip all the actors involved in the field with IT tools, trainings, sharing of good practices, and so on. And the fourth axe is to support 6 specific target groups that we have identified, who are the job seekers, the youth, the elderly, the marginalized persons, and the migrants are part of this group, also the people with handicap, and the sixth group is the women. So I'm a bit ashamed to say that women are more and more in the digital gap, but apparently it's the case. So we need also to put the focus on women, and especially the women who are living alone with kids at home and who are struggling with all the things they need to do in their life. So.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you. I would like to pick on also one thing about that you were mentioning. I think it was on your second axis, which was about evaluation. Medici has built and is building, it's a work in progress, a catalog of good practices in the field. And one of the aspects that we value in the good practices is the importance of given to evaluation and replicability tools and things like that. Basically, because we want to offer the possibility to our community members of learning through what works best in the field and what shows good results and good and outcomes as well. So I'm interested to know for your different contexts. Is this something that you value, Adam? I would like to ask you specifically if this is something that it's in the culture of your organization. How do you approach evaluation within your organization? Do you evaluate all your projects? Do you use the same or different methodologies? What do you do with the results? Do you use them just for internal growth, or do you present them, or how do you best use your results? And also, if you can give a word of how important is that for the funding aspect of your foundation?
Yeah, it's a really good question. Evaluation is critical because of the need to be able to demonstrate a link between investment and outcomes, which obviously is of importance to all funders, but particularly so, and if I can use this word, paradoxically so, with the pandemic, because obviously public health, employment, mental health, a lot of other priorities have quite rightly taken precedence, and it's been sometimes hard for authorities and governments, in the case of the UK, to really prioritise digital inclusion as a thing in its own right, despite the acuity of the need that we see out there, because COVID has undoubtedly made things worse for people who are digitally excluded. Everything has gone online. The pace of acceleration has increased again. So it can be quite hard for some funders to prioritise it, and that's why it's doubly important that we do evaluation and we share the case for investing in digital inclusion as widely as we can. So our approach to that is to put it at the heart of what we do. So as a charity, we evaluate all of our programs. Sometimes we do that through our own in-house evaluation team, and other times, as with the project that we're doing with the JP Morgan Chase Foundation, we have an independent evaluator that comes in and reviews and does the piece of work. But it all comes down to having a very clear theory of change, which shows the relationship between the inputs, the assets that you're putting in, so the people, the technology, the investment, the model that you're using to support people, whether that's a digital work skills model or a digital health model, and then the outcomes, not only in terms of the immediate benefits to individuals. So I have learned these new digital skills, which means that I can now use Zoom to contact my medical practitioner, for example. but also the longer term. I feel more confident about digital. I feel more able to use government and public online services. And I have been able to improve my happiness, my healthiness, my well-being, economic well-being in other ways. So it's really important to have that theory of change and then to have a rigorous methodology for evaluating. We tend to use mixed methods evaluation most of the time. So we will mix up qualitative and quantitative analysis. We have run one randomized control trial, but it was a few years ago now. It was as part of a digital financial inclusion project. It had its challenges, but it was a useful experience. And of course, RCTs are more of a gold standard when it comes to evaluation. So we try and put it at the heart of everything that we do. And we then push that data and that evidence out into the influencing that we do of funders and of the government in particular. Each year we produce an infographic, and if I have time, I'll just try and dig that out and share it on the chat panel before we finish, called Digital Nation, which brings together all of the data about the digital divide in the UK, all the facts about who is the wrong side of the divide and who's moved to the right side, and what is happening to make things improve. So we try and use that, but also the outcomes of our evaluation to influence policy. I think using partnerships too is a really important way to influence and to shape the future of this of strategy on digital inclusion. So in particular with the pandemic, one of the things we did, I won't talk too much about the access piece because like Tanya, we straight away realized that access was an issue. And so we mobilized a devices and data scheme, which has been distributing devices, over 12,000 so far, to people who are sheltering from COVID in their homes and do not have internet access. So we did that, but then alongside that, we prioritized our work around the key themes, and in each case used partnerships to try new approaches and to generate new evidence that we could then use to share and influence with. So on public health, we're working with the multinational RB to pilot a new way of doing digital health in communities called digital health hubs. On employment, we've been partnering with Accenture on a program called Future Proof, which is all about how you help people who are unemployed or underemployed to build their digital skills, but also to build their motivation and their confidence and ultimately their resilience in a more digital workplace. And with MasterCard, we've mobilized a program called Nobody in the Dark, which is all about helping people to understand how digital can help them to manage their finances, their personal finances, and save money. So we've been investing in those programs, and through the partnerships and the influence that we have with those partners, we can then push more evidence and evaluation and best practice back into policymakers and think tanks and everybody that is involved in creating the strategies for the country going forwards. The final thing to mention is we did, as part of our partnership with Google.org, we ran a roundtable last September, and this was for NGOs in the EMEA region, so Europe, Middle East and Africa, that are active in digital inclusion. And the aim was to bring NGOs around the table and to share experiences of what happened during the COVID pandemic and lockdown and the different country contexts. And there were three core findings were that everybody knows that there is a greater urgency around digital inclusion now. That was a common theme. The second was that the pandemic has disproportionately affected particular groups. So in the UK, we know that BMAE groups have been disproportionately affected, but also people on lower incomes, people in lower skilled jobs. And then the third finding that came out clearly was the need to pivot the way that we do digital inclusion so that we're using new models and new ways of doing it, particularly reaching people through remote means. So maybe starting on the telephone and then helping them to build their digital skills so that they can use a platform like Zoom so that we can then continue to work with them. So the need to do things in new ways. And all of these were very clearly common factors across all of the different organizations. There was an organization from Kenya, there were many from South Africa, and then many from across Europe. And these were very, very much common features. So that's just to finish with, it's really important that we share best practice across the network of NGOs and other organizations that are active in this space too, because we're all facing similar challenges and we're stronger together if we can share our best practice and learn.
Thank you so much, Adam. That was brilliant. I think we are 10 minutes away from ending our session, so I think we will be getting a few questions from the audience now. Joaquin, can you help me with some of the questions?
Yes, sure. First of all, I would like to thank you all the panelists, all the speakers, because all the speeches have been very, very interesting. You have already answered most of the questions, but I have a few of them. For example, what lessons have you learned from these terrible times? Beyond pandemic ends, what measures, lessons, initiatives, methodologies put in practice because of the pandemic will remain? It's a general question, so raise your hand and, and answer. Yes, Adam, please.
So building on what I just said, I think the two features that will undoubtedly remain, well, there are three actually, three features that will remain. One is the focus on access, and effectively you're extending the digital inclusion journey backwards to saying that there are people who do not have devices, tablets, smartphones, connectivity, and data poverty in particular has been a huge issue in the UK. People having to choose between food and data, which in today's world is not where we want to be. So that, including access as part of our digital inclusion programs, I think is something that will stay with us. The second thing are these blended models of delivery. So using telephone, using remotes, using other ways as well as face-to-face to interact with people. And then the third thing that will stay the same, and I hope get even stronger, is the focus on partnership, because never has it been more important to address digital inclusion, but never has it been more important to do it through partnership, because no one organization has all the resources and all the expertise that it needs. We need to come together and work together. So those are the three things I think that we've learned and will continue to be part of what we do going forwards.
Thank you.
Tanya, Sandra, Luisa, would you like to add anything else?
No, nothing else except that I totally agree with Adam.
Yeah, only one thing is that access is really, really, really important. And it's true that in Belgium, the statistics say that 1 person on 10, 90% have access to internet. But with the pandemic, we see that those 10% had increased actually, because okay, you maybe have an internet connection at home, but you need more laptops and so on. So as I said a bit earlier, it's just not only one computer at home and one connection to the internet. Now you need a really strong internet connection, and you need 2, 3, 4 laptops, or at least one per person in the family. So it's this point has really increased, and we must be attentive to that point, to the access. Afterwards, we can put on digital skills and so on, but if you don't have access, you can know how it works. If you don't have access, it doesn't mean anything.
In Portugal, the concerns are the same, but just for your known, we have now a social price for the internet. After the pandemic crisis, we have a social price for the access to the internet for the disadvantaged people. And we intend to give a laptop or tablet with internet connection in this program that I said before, Portugal Digital. Eu sou digital, I am digital, because the vulnerable people have no access to the internet, have no computer, have no laptop, have no tablet, and they need to have the access and the tablet or computer to have digital skills, because it's important. Just these 2 points.
Thank you, Luisa. That was one of the questions we have received in the chat. What type of solutions to provide internet access in the home of vulnerable groups? have been implemented in your countries. You have already answered more or less this question. Do you think this measure to facilitate the access to internet will remain for vulnerable groups in the following years? Or it's just a measure for the pandemic?
Just quickly, I would say that the key point is that going back to what I said at the start about the link between digital exclusion and social and economic exclusion, the pandemic is undoubtedly going to have a very long impact into the future, whether that's on levels of unemployment rising, or public health problems rising, mental health in particular. So with that tight link between digital exclusion and social and economic exclusion, I can't see this failing to be a priority. It has to be a priority in the years ahead. And I think the question is how we do it, particularly when governments and organizations will have less money because of the economic consequences of the pandemic. So how can we ensure that digital inclusion is part of everything else? Because it will be increasingly difficult, I think, to do it as an activity in its own right. There will be greater pressure for it to become part of financial inclusion and part of public health. And I think the question is how we can make it work. But I don't doubt that it will continue to be a huge priority because the impact of the pandemic will last so long into the future.
Just saying that the recovery plan and resilience for Portuguese economy is focused in digital transition. Digital skills are in the center of the plan, European plan for we implemented after or during the pandemic crisis. Yeah.
There is another related question. Is from Ilse Marie. How do you identify those citizens who are lacking access in their homes? What criteria are being used for the right to social tariffs?
I was going to let somebody else speak first this time, but I'll have a go again. The way we have done it is by working with our community partners. So we deliberately work with organisations that are hyper-local and know the local people in their community, and through their very local networks are able then to reach out and say, well, we know that this part of our town is more deprived. We know that there are more families there that are likely to lack internet access, and we will use our own contacts there to pinpoint the people that need the support. So it's not a scientific approach. It's not been and it involves a high level of trust in the community partners. But in the absence of a very big data set that allows us to say at household level, here are the people who have who lack access, and maybe we'll have that in the future, then we have put the trust in our local community partners. And so far they've been very precise in the way that they've identified people that have a need and are unlikely to be able to progress without that access themselves. So that's the way we've done it in the UK.
Yes, in Portugal, we work too with the community, local community, and they identified people who need to have basic digital skills. Yeah, it's the same way.
Joaquin, I think we need to get to the end.
Yeah.
Right.
That's all for my side, Miana.
Yes.
It's almost
thank
3.
You so much, Joaquin. Thank you. And thank you very much, Sandra, Luisa, Adam, and Tanya for being here today. It was a very good and very useful debate. And thank you to everyone who has been participating and attending to this webinar. So we're getting to a close of our session. And I hope you tune in for the next sessions, the upcoming sessions tomorrow. We're going to start again at 10 a.m. CET time. Hopefully, I hope to see you everyone again tomorrow morning. And thank you very much. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Hello. Miana, yeah, everyone is leaving.
Should I turn?
Yes, let's switch it. I will end it.
Okay.
Everything. Okay, well done.
Thank you.
I'm ending the session.